Okay, and we are set.
Okay, wonderful. Welcome everybody to meeting number 4 for the Town of Rotterdam Comprehensive Plan Update Comprehensive Plan Advisory Committee meeting. This is Jacqueline Hake speaking from MJ Engineering, and I'm joined this evening also by Andrew Gilchrist of MJ Engineering. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We do have a little bit of a late start. We were making sure all of our technical items were working properly with our committee before we got started. So I do just want to let everybody know that we are live streaming on YouTube. This meeting will be recorded and available on the project website within the next couple of days. So if folks miss this, they have a chance to view the presentation and hear the discussion at a later time. Andrew, could you please do roll call?
Sure, so we'll just start from the top of my list here. This is not in alphabetical order. Gregory Campoli.
Greg's here.
Jonathan Tingley.
Here.
David All. Kathleen Curtis. Milan Jackson. Jim Trigger.
Here.
Lynn Flansburgh.
Lynn here.
Peter Comenzo.
I'm here.
Stephen Thomasone. And Andrew Gilchrist here from MJ, and Jackie Hakes from MJ as well.
And David has joined us. It looks like he is muted. So okay. I just want to state that Dave has joined us here.
Okay.
Right. Advance the slide.
You should be good now.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Bear with us, and we thank you for your patience as we are, Andrew and I are sharing hosting duties this evening back and forth. So just a quick overview of our agenda today. Again, we really appreciate the committee, all of you and your willingness to try this virtual meeting so that we can keep the process moving forward. And again, we thank you for your flexibility and patience for this. This evening, we do want to share with you a project update of where we are and where we are going next with this project. We are happy to share with you some highlights from the community survey. The online survey just recently closed, and Andrew will be sharing some of the highlights of that survey from the community. And then we want to begin a discussion about the draft vision to shape the town of Rotterdam for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and follow that with a discussion of draft goals. And then we also want to lead into and continue a discussion about the format and structure and outline of the draft comprehensive plan as we start to head into that next phase. We do want to make note that because the public is not participating in this meeting, it's viewing and hearing only, we do still want to hear public comment. So we would welcome you to please email your comments to rotterdamnyplan@gmail.com. We do receive them, and we do share the comments that we get via email with the committee for consideration. In terms of a project update, for the most part, we are right on schedule. This was a regularly scheduled committee meeting here in April. We have had 2 public meetings to date, and we have had a series of pop-up stations and stakeholder meetings. I will talk with you in terms of next steps at the end of our session today about the focus group meetings. The focus group meetings are what we had intended to be doing over the course of this month and next month. Those we had anticipated those being in-person meetings. Clearly, that is a bit of a challenge given the circumstances that we are all under now and the social distancing that we are following at this time. So we will want to talk with you about some ideas we have for a different format and different platform for those focus group meetings. So we'll get into more discussion about that later on. so that will allow us to continue moving forward with the process. In other elements of the process that we have been working on and that are in progress, the existing conditions inventory and analysis, we are working with Peter as town staff through that right now. There are a couple of things that we are working on, in particular, the existing land uses within the town, and we're working through some details with regard to assessment data we've gotten, and the reflection of what the reality is on the ground, in particular with the agricultural land uses. So that is ongoing right now. And with regard to the public engagement process, that is ongoing throughout the duration of this effort. But to date, we've held 8 stakeholder meetings, 2 public workshops, and we've had 3 pop-up stations, 2 at each of the schools. And one at Chalmont, one at Mohonasen, and a 3rd pop-up station at the senior center. And as I mentioned, we've just recently closed the online community survey. The next 2 items are what we are kicking off and initiating this evening with all of you. That is the vision and goals and the framework for the draft comprehensive plan. So with that, I am going to turn the controls over to Andrew at this point in time to discuss with you some highlights of the community survey. This is not an exhaustive analysis. We just wanted to share with you some of the highlights that stuck out to us. And you will have the opportunity to view, we are pulling together a summary analysis of the survey, and we will present that to you as a committee, and as well as all of the actual survey results themselves. So Andrew, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So just a little recap about the survey. So this does build off of or expands upon a student survey that a class from Chalmont High School had done that focused around some of the level of service of the town services. This survey builds upon that and focuses a bit more on some of the land use concerns in the town. So the survey was done through SurveyMonkey online, and it was live for about a month from February 27th to April 1st. And in that time of just about a month, we received about 222 respondents, which for a month-long survey, we were very, very pleased with. I did want to mention that this survey was made available to the public and noticed through a couple of press releases. It was also posted to the project website as well as the town website, and paper flyers were distributed, as well as business cards that had information on how to take the survey that you see on your screen there. The general topic areas, there were 4 general topic areas for this survey, which included demographic and background information about the respondents taking the survey, the places we gather, the way land is used, and the future. And I'll talk a little bit about those topic areas in just a moment. So starting with demographic and background information, we just wanted to learn a little bit about who was taking the survey. So in terms of where people are from, where people are living, the majority of people, nearly 56% of the respondents, were from the 12306 area code, or zip code, excuse me. About 30% were from the 12303, and about 10% were from the 12150 zip code, and the other zip codes there are those are the 8 that were represented by the respondents. If anyone has any questions during this, feel free to jump in at any time.
So Andrew, since you asked, how does that compare to the populations in those groups, those zip codes?
We haven't delved into that level of analysis yet, so we'd have to get back to you on that. On that particular question.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I don't know if Peter has any, or if anyone else has any more knowledge about that in particular, but the populations of the different zip codes that they would want to add, but we can definitely look into that. So the next question dealt with the age of the participants. So the majority, about 28%, were in the 55 to 64 age range, followed by the 45 to 54 age range at 23%. And then, interestingly, the 35 to 44 age group and the 65 plus age group were about even at around 20% of the respondents. The next section of the survey was titled "The Places We Gather." This was really looking at where people are going in the town for various activities, whether it be dining and shopping and entertainment, recreation. And each question, the questions were accompanied by this map that you see on the screen. We did also share this map at our last committee meeting that divides the town into several geographic areas. I do just want to mention a couple of things about the geographic areas. So the way that these were determined were these are the geographic areas that were first established in the 2001 comprehensive plan, and then we modified it slightly. Areas D and E were directly from the plan, and then in that original plan, areas A, B, and C were all combined into one. And so we separated them out into these into separate areas because they do have they do have definitely a distinction to them that warranted separating them into different areas. These are also the areas. At our last meeting, we had discussed setting up the plan based on geographic area, and these would be the geographic areas that we would be looking to separate the town into for the plan. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. So the question 3, this is the first one in the places we gather. This dealt with where people are going for dining, shopping, and entertainment. We asked folks to select the areas of town where they're going for these for this. Most people are going to, nearly 50% are going to area E, and I'll just shift back up. So that's the lower, the southern portion of the town that borders with Schenectady. And then that's followed by D right next to it, and not as much the other areas. The next question is the places we gather for recreation. And this was interesting because this is this was really kind of all across the board, and it shows that people are seeking recreation in all areas of the town, as well as outside of the town. The other a lot of the respondents who selected other specified areas outside of the town that they were going for recreation. Question 5. This is moving on to the next section of the survey, which dealt more with land use concerns. In this question, would you encourage or discourage the following land uses in the town? This was a table of a number of different land use types that people could either mention as being as encouraging or discouraging in the town. So this is a lot to read and probably hard to see on the screen. So I'm just going to call out some of the ones that rose to the top, and that includes in terms of land uses that respondents encouraged. That was residential, single-family homes, service businesses, restaurants, public outdoor recreation, and the protection of natural areas and open space. In terms of ones that rose to the top for land uses that folks would discourage, that would be high-density residential, things like apartments and condos, as well as motels and hotels. The next questions under the land use section of the survey are a continuation of question number 5. So question 6 is, what other land uses would you encourage in the town? This was an open-ended response that allowed people to fill in other ideas that they might have. So this is just this list here is just some of the common responses that we kept hearing over and over again. And I do want to mention that the full survey analysis with full responses will be made available to the committee, and it will also be posted to the website. So the common responses here for land uses that folks would encourage in the town, things that rose to the top are more parks and recreational facilities, particularly a large centrally located park area, more commercial and retail land uses, particularly grocery stores, restaurants, and shopping. And something that came up quite a few times was the reuse and sort of redevelopment or infill of existing areas. So not necessarily developing new areas, but utilizing existing areas. The next one is what other land uses would you discourage in the town? Some of the common responses here were high density residential, including apartments, condominiums, and high-rise structures. Some commercial uses, and specifically things that came up pretty often were auto parts stores, convenience stores, banks, and pharmacies, and certain industrial development. The next one, we asked specifically where commercial and retail growth should be directed within the town. And again, this was an open-ended question. And these are the ones that rose to the top. So the Five Corners area, the Viaport Mall, Curry Road and Altamont Avenue, the reuse of abandoned and vacant areas, and several respondents answered that the western portion of town should have more commercial and retail growth. The next one, where should residential growth be directed within the town? We had a number of responses that mentioned Western Rotterdam. We had a number of responses that mentioned keeping residential within existing residential areas. A number of people mentioned encouraging better property maintenance and rehabilitation of structures rather than new residences, and encourage the construction of single-family homes as opposed to apartments. The next section of the survey dealt with the future, so looking at sort of the visionary component of the survey. So this question number 10, how would you describe your ideal vision of Rotterdam in 5, 10, or 20 years? These are some of the common responses that came out of this. A safe community with a strong economy, a more vibrant community with public recreation spaces that is welcoming to new businesses, a more walkable community and an improved streetscape, better sense of community, balance of residential areas, shopping, dining, and entertainment while maintaining natural areas and green space, and a thriving and active town. Next, we asked respondents to identify the top 3 concerns or challenges for Rotterdam. This is just a selection of those top challenges that were mentioned. So high taxes, lack of commercial and retail businesses, property maintenance, too many apartments, infrastructure concerns related to water, sewer, and road conditions, traffic congestion, no sense of community, walkability and pedestrian infrastructure, and a lack of large centralized park facility. They're repeating themes throughout the survey. The next question was identify your top 3 opportunities you see for the town in the future. This included things like commercial growth, access via major transportation networks in the industrial park, the Viaport Mall property, riverfront access, a stable population via residential neighborhoods, agricultural opportunities, and great schools. And I'm just going to pass it on to, or actually I'll open up the discussion about the vision. But first, does anybody have any questions about the survey? Okay, so we'll move on to the vision portion of the meeting. So just before we kind of dive into the draft vision, I just want to remind everyone, what is a vision and how is it used in the comprehensive plan. So a vision statement establishes the direction for the community over the next 5 to 10, even 20 years. And it really forms the basis for the comprehensive plan. And it sets the tone for the plan. And all of the goals and the recommendations that come from this plan aim to achieve that vision, that established community vision. In terms of how the plan, the draft vision that we'll be presenting was developed, first and foremost was with community input through various public engagement activities, including the survey, stakeholder meetings, the stakeholder meeting input, public open houses, input from all of you, from the committee, as well as town staff. And sort of all those ideas were kind of formulated into this overall vision. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie to talk about the draft vision here.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. And with that, here is a draft vision that we are introducing to you this evening that we want to talk through. This is by no means the vision yet. This requires our discussion and thought and discussion together with you as a committee. We also, through future public meetings, will be introducing this to the public to get input from the public on as well. The goal for this evening is to walk through this with you and to get high level kind of initial feedback. What is your initial reaction to what is included in this vision and the way it's describing the future of your community over the next, as Andrew said, 5, 10, 20 years. We want to be able to get that feedback so that then we can refine this vision to reflect that feedback. We don't anticipate that we would be wordsmithing the vision or the goals, for that matter, this evening. That's a difficult thing to do when there are several of us sitting around a table, even more challenging in a virtual meeting setting. So what we would ask of the committee is that after we've gone through their discussion this evening together, if you have any other thoughts or ideas that come up as you think about this, over the next week or two, if you could share those with Andrew and I, and then we will compile all of that. And as I said, refine the vision, refine the goals, and work back and forth with you as committee members to get this to a point where you are comfortable sharing this with the public to get their input. And I would just stress to the public that this is a draft for discussion purposes only this evening. This is the first time that the committee is seeing this. With that, I'm going to read this. I think sometimes it's helpful. I know it's a lot of text. It's a little long, but there was a lot that we were trying to capture. So I'm going to read this out loud and then pause for a moment and open it up for discussion and initial thoughts from the committee. So the draft vision for the town of Rotterdam is as follows. The town of Rotterdam is a thriving, friendly community of distinct neighborhoods that together create a desirable place to live, work, and play. Locally owned businesses, walkable neighborhoods, excellent schools, and vibrant commercial corridors, as well as an active industrial area, support a growing tax base, employment opportunities, and a high quality of life. At the crossroads of several major transportation routes, Rotterdam offers easy access to major capital region destinations for employment, retail, and institutions of higher education. Rotterdam enjoys a diversity of housing options from historic single-family neighborhoods to multifamily neighborhoods. There are housing choices to accommodate all generations. Rotterdam is respectful of its rich history and natural resources, prioritizing the health and well-being of its residents, visitors, and the environment. Parks and recreational opportunities abound, providing options for people of all ages to connect with nature and each other. So I'm going to pause there and ask the committee for your initial thoughts. Does this describe, say in the year 2030, where you want the town to be?
I think this is a very
Thoughts?
good summary of everything that's been discussed at the past meetings of what we want it to be in, whatever 20, 30 years, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you. Other thoughts?
So yeah, I'll tend to agree that this is a pretty good summary of the things we've been discussing. And the only thing absent, I guess, I've been one of my focus areas is that third paragraph where we talk about easy access, which implies outside of Rotterdam. But I guess I'd be looking for a paragraph that talked about the easy access to Rotterdam.
Mm-hmm.
We see people drive past us every day on I-90 going to Albany for work. Why don't they stop here with professional buildings and develop professional buildings here? Whether it's from Amsterdam or beyond, or Cobleskill or beyond, or whatever, wherever they're coming from that they're passing through. So the idea that Rotterdam is centrally located for commercial and professional development opportunities.
That's a really big distinction and a great one. Thank you.
Yeah,
Greg.
great point.
Other initial thoughts? Okay. Well, like I said, I know that you all are seeing this. We did provide a copy just yesterday in case our video was not functioning properly. We wanted to be able to continue having a discussion with you this evening. But we would encourage you, similar to the point that Greg just made, we would encourage you if there are things there that that you would like to have us refine, or if there's something that's missing or something that doesn't quite fit with what you think we've been hearing from the community, we want to hear that. This is your vision for your community, and it needs to be reflective of that. We are just the conduit that have been gathering all this information and trying to funnel it into a draft vision. So we would ask you to share any of your thoughts or comments with us as we move forward. So I'm going to shift now from the vision into discussion of the draft goals. As Andrew had indicated, the vision is really the overall framework for the future of your community. And everything within the comprehensive plan that follows and kind of comes under that is intended to support that vision. And so the steps that we're taking for this particular effort to develop goals to support that vision we just discussed are as follows. Number one, as we had talked with you at our last committee meeting, we started talking about townwide topic areas. Topic areas that are applicable throughout the entire community that we want to dive a little deeper into with regard to specific recommendations. So what we have done is we are proposing, and I'm going to walk through those and get your feedback. We are proposing a series of topic areas. And then also this evening, we will be sharing with you some initial draft goals for each topic area. And then following that, at our next meeting, we will be sharing with you specific recommendations for each of those geographic areas that we've been talking about within the community, within the town, to address those specific goals. And we're going to talk through the format, and we've got a graphic to share with you how that's all going to fall into place within the comprehensive plan so that we can talk about that. But first, let's talk about the townwide topic areas. So we have identified this series of topic areas to be focusing our goals around. The first one is neighborhoods, housing, and community. Next is transportation and mobility. Next is economic growth, history, culture, and education, natural resources, agriculture, and environment, parks and recreation, and infrastructure and governance. Before we move into the goals that we've prepared and are introducing to you this evening, any comments from the committee with regard to these topic areas? And they're intentionally broad topic areas. And I think you'll see once we get into the goals that they can get a little more specific. But initial thoughts about these topic areas: is there a topic that is missing, or that you think is important that we need to include or call out explicitly here?
Can you describe what you mean by governance?
Yes, yes, thank you. That's a great question. So, in governance, what would fall under that are things like your zoning, recommendations and goals for your perhaps development review process, for the internal systems of the town, if you will, in terms of how those systems work, to govern the town moving forward. Did that answer the
Yep.
question? All right. Anything else on the topic areas before we start to talk specifically about some draft goals within each of these?
Just a quick question from Lynn. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. It seems like the topic areas are kind of in line with the stakeholder groups that you had. So which kind of came first? Like, is this typical topic areas that you've dealt with in other communities' comprehensive plans, and that's how the stakeholder groups were delineated in the first place, and then this kind of results from that?
Yes, Lynn. Good eye. Yeah, these do follow the stakeholder group meetings that we had set up. It doesn't necessarily mean that the topic areas have to follow that. It just seemed to continue to make sense as we were going through the process, hearing from the community about some of the topic areas and some of the challenges and opportunities. I will say one that we always do include as a topic area in across the board in all of our communities is the infrastructure and governance. It's kind of the nuts and bolts pieces. The other topic areas vary depending on community and what the focus is within the community. So these can be modified. These are in no order of importance. They just happen. This is the order that we happen to be introducing them. Other questions? Okay. So with that, all right, I'm going to ask Andrew to walk us through what we're going to do for each of those topic areas. There are a handful of goals, 2, 3, 4, depending on the particular topic area and how complex it may be. These goals are intended to help support that vision that we had talked about. And following the goals, as I had mentioned before, we will have more specific recommendations within each of these topic areas by geographic area, right? So just keep that in mind as Andrew is walking through these goals. Andrew, I will hand it over to you.
Sure. So I'm just going to read through these goals, and then I'll pause after each section. And if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to speak up. So in terms of for neighborhoods, housing, and community, the goals include preserve and enhance the character and unique identity of existing neighborhoods and hamlets, create places and activities to celebrate community, maintain and enhance existing housing stock, support housing options that are appropriately located, meet the needs of seniors and all generations, and serve all incomes. Transportation and mobility. Maintain a safe, reliable, and efficient transportation system that provides multimodal access to all residents and visitors. Enhance the walkability of historic hamlet areas and increase neighborhood connectivity. Improve accessibility of neighborhood commercial corridors by completing the street.
Hi, can I just have you expand on the last one? What does it mean by completing the street? Is that with regard to connecting our sidewalks and stuff for walkability, or what is it referring to?
Sure, Lynn, I'll take that. Yes, complete streets is a term that refers to creating a street network that is convenient and accessible for all people and all modes. So people of all abilities, and to the extent that it's possible, as many modes as possible, meaning walking, biking, vehicles, and transit. So the idea here is to improve accessibility for a variety of modes, which could be the sidewalk connectivity for pedestrians, could be from a transit perspective. It really, the idea is to take a look at the neighborhoods and particularly the commercial corridors to be able to make those more accessible for folks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For economic growth, the goals are promote investment and reinvestment to attract and retain local businesses and employment opportunities. Ensure that commercial growth occurs in a manner that maintains the character of the community while expanding the town's tax base and the availability of services to members of the community. Support and promote existing commercial and industrial areas. Okay. Next is history, culture, and education. Protect, enhance, and promote historic and cultural resources of the town for the enjoyment of visitors and community members. Expand opportunities for residents and visitors to experience history, arts, and culture. Support and foster educational opportunities to ensure the success of future generations. Next is natural resources, agriculture, and environment. The goals include preserve and protect key natural resources and critical environmental areas, including the Great Flats Aquifer. Preserve and protect farmland that support a local agricultural economy. Parks and recreation. Provide recreational opportunities that utilize the scenic and natural resources of the town. Provide a diversity of year-round recreational opportunities for the enjoyment of all residents and visitors. And finally, infrastructure and governance. Ensure the availability of public facilities, infrastructure, and emergency services that adequately serve the present and future needs of Rotterdam. Okay, hand it back to Jackie. Oh, Jackie, you're on mute.
Thank you, Andrew. It's a good thing you could see me talking. I'm going to pause there for just a moment. I know that that was a lot to digest. Again, I would ask that if you as committee members have thoughts, ideas, additions, deletions, that you please share them with us. We certainly welcome that input. Before we do move on, is there anything that might have jumped out at you as Andrew was walking through some of those draft goals at this point in time that you'd like to discuss? Okay. With that, we will continue to move on. Just a reminder again of the geographic areas within the community. A couple of things here. I wanted to remind you of them so that it makes sense as we go into the next discussion item, which is the outline and format of the draft comprehensive plan. The other thing that we would like to ask the committee to be thinking about, and I know that there was a discussion that had begun when we were developing these geographic areas for the survey. But that's also is what would an appropriate description or name be for these geographic areas that is recognizable, that essentially assigns an identity and a character to each of these, which they do have their own distinct character. already. So we would be asking, giving some homework to those of you on the committee that in your free time right now, perhaps think about some possible descriptors for these areas, and we will be sending you some of our ideas, as well as and incorporate some of what we've already heard from some of our committee members as we were developing the online survey. So I would throw that out there for you. And then here is, if I can move forward. So here is how all of the discussion items that we've been talking with you about this evening, how we are proposing this fits into a structure of an actual comprehensive plan document. And the reason that we want to have this conversation with you now is that there are several elements of the document that we can already start piecing together, and components that we can start preparing as we go along through this process. And we like to do that so that we can, utilize the time that the town is spending to pull this comprehensive plan together efficiently. So this is a basic graphic to illustrate how we are proposing at this point, for discussion purposes, the format and the structure of your comprehensive plan. So at the start, we would have an introduction talking about the community. We would provide an overview of and highlights of the existing conditions for the community, talk about why Rotterdam has undertaken this important effort, and that will lead into the vision. And the vision does set that overall framework for the future. And then we would talk about those goals by topic areas. And then there would be a section for each of those geographic areas. And under each of those geographic areas would be a series of recommendations by topic area. And then all of those recommendations get folded into the implementation section. And that's a really critical section, because if we go through all of this work together to identify a series of recommendations, you want to have those implemented. You want to see this plan move forward and have life beyond just the development of the plan. And so that implementation section will include a table to help identify, leaders that could these recommendations, technical resources, perhaps financial funding resources to help the town move this forward. So that is how we are envisioning the format and the structure of the plan. I know we had begun this conversation with the committee the last time we were together. Is it just focused on topic area? Just focused on geographic area? This is a hybrid that we think makes sense, because each of these geographic areas, they do have very distinct character. They have very distinct needs and opportunities, and we want to celebrate that and recognize that with the recommendations that come out of this plan that can help advance those particular geographic areas. With that, I'm going to pause for a moment there and ask for any feedback from the committee in terms of this particular format that we're introducing. Okay, hearing no comments. Again, I know that it's a little challenging given this this format, this platform. So if there are thoughts that you have, we would certainly ask you to share them with us. Since we have hearing no objections to this proposed format, what we will do is we will actually put this into a document outline so that you can get a feel for how this would flow from a document perspective, and that might also help you as you're contemplating the format. Okay. So I'm going to talk through next steps and then stop and see if there's any last comments or thoughts that the committee might have. But I think it's important to talk through some of the next steps. The first item we want to talk about with regard to next steps are those focus group meetings. At the beginning of our session this evening, You saw the schedule for the process, and it did identify 3 focus group meetings. What we would like to propose is that we continue to move forward with those focus group meetings. However, we do that in a very different platform, in a very different format, and not in person, but we do perhaps there are a variety of ways that we can do this to be able to gather input. We could do online forums, online bulletin boards. We could put together videos. There are a number of different ways that we could do this. And so first of all, I want to get an indication from the committee if it's possible, and we certainly would need to coordinate with the town and make sure that this is something that the town also wishes to continue to advance. But I want to get some initial feedback from the committee if it's feasible to be able to modify the format and platform for these focus group meetings in a meaningful way to be able to get input from community members. Is that something you would like us to try and advance?
Okay, I'll jump in then. I have a question. So
Sure.
obviously the times that we're in right now are unprecedented for our lifetime. Can you tell me what a focus group meeting would have looked like in a pre-COVID experience? And then I'm really hesitant just from our personal experience having a teacher in our household now learning how to instruct online. I have students in my household learning how to learn online. And I know that there's a significant disconnect in the population of who would be more or less inclined and what kind of representation we might be losing out on. So can you kind of describe how the focus group meetings would have looked so that I can sort of grasp who I think we might be disconnecting with?
Sure, absolutely, Lynn. Thank you. So our focus group meetings that we were, in particularly following the second public meeting, it became very clear to us the type of focus group meeting we wanted to be structuring. We would be recommending a focus group meeting for the geographic areas so that we can dive a little deeper into those issues and opportunities and understand what those areas mean or need rather. And so, the Rotterdam Junction area, those areas, the D&E areas, and the more populated areas that Andrew had identified, we would be looking to divide up the geographic areas into kind of 3 of those 3 focus group meetings. So that's what we were focusing on. The intent for the in-person meetings was to cast a broad net and invite people. It's essentially a targeted public meeting, right? So the idea was to have, I'm going to use the term a roundtable discussion with very specific questions related to those geographic areas. Because to date, we've really been having conversations at a very high town-wide level. We want to get a little deeper. We want to have more specifics. And that's the intent of these focus group meetings. And so the idea was to sit around a series of small tables with members of the community and ask some specific questions of them. So that was our original intent. Given that under our current circumstances, that's not feasible right now or for the foreseeable future, and nobody knows when that might be feasible. One of the things that we were thinking of is developing that series of specific questions that we would like to get community input on for those areas, and put that into an online virtual format to be able to get feedback. Your point, Lynn, is very well taken, and that's why we wanted to talk with you as a committee about whether or not it makes sense to continue moving forward or if we hit pause on the focus group meetings. There's certainly other work that we can be doing in the meantime until we know that we can have a more meaningful focus group meeting. The accessibility of people to the online platform is something that we would want to consider very, very carefully. If there's a concern that that might not reach the broadest number of community members. There's an opportunity perhaps we could do, and we would certainly have to work with the town about this. If folks can print something and drop it off at the town, we would really need to think very, very carefully about how to do that. But I would look to you. You all know your community. Do you think an online platform, virtual platform, if that is used for the focus group meetings, would we be missing a significant portion and an important portion of the community members?
Nobody's jumping in, so I will.
Thank you.
I feel like that you might be inclined to get either the 222 SurveyMonkey respondents, and you're just getting a subset of the same people. And I don't know that we would be reaching beyond what our current participant level has been. And then my other quick thing, I was just kind of jotting down while you were talking, is how would the focus groups differ from the stakeholder meetings? Is it because you're saying it would be more specific to the geographic regions and that was more the broad topic areas that they wanted to discuss?
It's different in two ways. Yes, it is geographically focused. That's one way. The second way is that this would be open to anyone. It wouldn't be an invite-only discussion, right? So we worked with you and the town to identify key stakeholders that had a specific knowledge within a specific topic area to talk to for the stakeholder group meetings. This would be a broader and open to any member of the public that wanted to come and attend. So they're really a more focused public workshop, if you want to think about it. And so they're focused geographically is what we're proposing.
Anybody else have any thoughts? I just think we're going to miss out on some level of demographics that I'm not grasping at this particular moment, but I just feel like it would be a even smaller subset than that which replied to the survey.
Yeah, Lynn, I think Greg here. I think I agree with you. I thought one of the conversations we'd have tonight would be about, pressing pause at some levels of this project. This may be the first one for discussion. And just from my own experience, I use WebEx all the time at work, and I'm currently on my work computer. But when I tried to do it on my home computer on my Mac, I was having technical challenges, which I didn't think I would have. So somebody who does use WebEx all the time could have troubles, getting into that focus group using a different tool or whatever. And like Lynn said, we may lose those people if not given the incentive to really dive in and participate. So, to the extent that we can pause, if there's other things that could be worked on, until such time that there's a different opportunity, I guess, I think we should, investigate that option.
This is John. I tend to agree with both of them. I think if we could restructure the process a little bit to try to preserve the in-person focus meetings the best we can, if other things can be done in the meantime, that would be my preference for sure.
Okay.
Jackie, this is Peter. I guess, what other components would you look to, I guess if we reorganize the flow chart there, then what would we be working on moving forward here in the next couple months?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we would be doing over the next month or so is to finalize that existing conditions inventory. So Peter, we'd be working with you particularly on refining that land use map and finalizing that. We would be pulling together a full summary of highlights for the survey. Given that the survey just closed, very recently, we have not had a chance to dive into it in full detail yet. So that is something we would want to be doing. In addition to that, we would want to be working with the committee on refining any input with regard to the vision and the goals. So we can certainly be doing that. And we certainly can ask and work with the committee with regard to area specific recommendations and start to get some thoughts from you. And I think what would be beneficial is if we were to prep as if we were having the focus group meetings in whatever format. And so when we are ready to have them in a way that we can capture, more of the community, we're ready to go. So I think that there are a handful of things, and we can also start pulling together the structure of the comprehensive plan document itself. So there are a handful of things that we can do over the course of the next month to be able to keep moving forward. And honestly, I think we all know that things, life change has been changing on a daily basis, and I think the reality is that there's not going to be the opportunity, at least through the end of this month, to have in-person meetings. And so it does make sense, I think, what I'm hearing from everybody, to just hit pause with regard to the focus group in-person meetings for now.
Well, I think in terms of developing these the area specific recommendations, the existing comp plan, although it's 20 years old, the original portion, and there were some very geographic specific recommendations in there. Also the addition of the linkage studies that were done for the areas around exit 25A and 25 and the Five Corners area and Rotterdam Junction. I don't think that those went through quite an extensive public review process, and they were very geographic specific, including the BOA that we did in Rotterdam Junction.
Mm-hmm.
I know those are a couple of years old, but there's a lot of really good site-specific information, and also, parcel by parcel at least in Rotterdam Junction as to how to move forward with that. So I don't know if if we do hit a pause, that we take some time maybe to kind of pull those themes together for the areas, and then kind of repackage that, I guess, and present that and see if that's still the vision, and that's kind of the consensus of the community moving forward.
Yeah, Peter, you've just identified some really great resources that the town has. While it's been quite a while since the town has updated the comprehensive plan, you have been moving forward with what I would call strategic focused plans. And that's some of what you just described. And that would be our starting point, certainly. And, perhaps one of the things we could do in terms of an exercise with the committee between now and our next committee meeting is to pull those together and be sharing those back and forth with one another, so that we can have a meaningful conversation about those area specific recommendations at our next regularly scheduled meeting, if you would like to continue that in June. And then, at that point in June, the world might be a little bit of a different place, and we can reevaluate when it's appropriate to go back to the community and get feedback on some of these area specific recommendations.
Sounds good.
Does that sound like a game plan right now, at least for the immediate future?
Sounds good to me.
It sounds good to me.
Yes, to me as
Yeah.
well.
Makes sense.
Okay, great. Thank you all. I know we normally don't spend this much time on next steps, but given the COVID-19 situation, we wanted to make sure that everybody was comfortable in terms of what we were proceeding with and how. So thank you very much for all of your thoughts here. So at this point, we will keep our June 11th committee meeting, which is committee meeting number 5. We obviously will be communicating with you if there's any change to that as we get closer to that. For all members of the public that might be listening, please check the project website for any updates. In the meantime, what Andrew and I will do is we will prepare just a follow-up email for the committee identifying, I know that we had asked for some feedback from you on a handful of items, including the draft vision and the draft goals. And then, we would ask that we get feedback from you over the next couple of weeks so that we can refine those items as we move forward. Are there any other comments or questions or items that the committee would like to bring up while we're together today?
So Jacqueline, Greg here, and maybe this is a question for Peter, but with respect to our timeline, which you referenced the spreadsheet we had up in the earlier slides, with this COVID-19 situation, as Lynn said, an unprecedented situation, and the governor, in addition to the president, asking for everybody to push pause, is there any discussions about sliding this whole entire timeline a month or two so that we're not compressed at any given point and are able to, fully exercise the expertise of the group and getting this done right, since it's only done once every 20 years?
Yeah, no, we had that discussion, the supervisor and I did with Jackie, and we're looking, we're looking at it. Really, I guess it was important to get some feedback from the group tonight to figure out, how we wanted to handle that. And I think, we'll probably know a lot more at the June meeting as to exactly what's going to go on. And like Jackie had said, if we can get work completed, in the next month or two, that we can kind of keep the timeline, but we can get some work that we can complete that doesn't necessarily need to involve the public and get that prepared for that. We'll know more moving forward. That being said, too, we were trying to avoid the summer months as much as possible too, because it's difficult to have the meeting. So if need be, and the timeline needs to move, that's just something that we'll have to look at and determine.
Okay, thanks.
And our team is flexible. We would, in terms of the timeline for this, we would take our direction from you as the community. But as Peter had indicated, there certainly is work that we can do between now and our next committee meeting, and so we will be continuing to do that, and then we can reevaluate where we are in the schedule and the engagement component in June.
And one final question. I know Andrew mentioned it early on with the survey, but when will the entire results of the survey be available, and how do you expect to present that to the group?
Sure. So given that we meet every other month, our thought was that we would email that to the committee so that you have a chance to review that prior to posting that for the public on the project website. We would probably need a couple of weeks to be able to kind of pull that together in a meaningful way. But that was our intent, was to email that to the committee for your review.
Okay, yeah, great. That's something you don't turn around very quickly. So it's got to take some time to absorb it and present it. And, we appreciate the time being taken. So we'll look for the email when it's available.
Okay, great. All right. So with that, I would just remind any members of the public that might be viewing this, we do want to hear your comments. Even though the in-person engagement components we're hitting pause, please share your comments with us via the project email. We do get those. I do want to make note that we did receive a public comment via email, and that has been forwarded to the committee. And so hopefully you received that in your email this week. And I think that's it. So here is the project website for those that might be viewing. Please visit the website. There's information there, and we will have this recording posted there probably early next week. That is all that we have for this evening for the committee. Are there any last comments or thoughts that you wanted to discuss? Well, hearing none, I want to thank the committee members again, and Peter, thank you so much for your patience again and flexibility and for your input. You will be communicating via email over the next several weeks. And if there's a need for us to connect again, just let us know. In the meantime, please stay well and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care,
you,
all.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.